Hello, gang. John Shinholser here, live from Richmond, Virginia at the McShedden Foundations. Not only Virginia's leading authentic recovery community organization, but I think probably one of the better ones in the nation, at least by my standards. And today we're going to have a really good show. I'm sure it'll go really fast, so you got to pay close attention so you don't miss anything. We're going to discuss treatment centers, sober homes, patient brokering, things of that nature. What little we might know about it, we'll talk about it. We're certainly not the leading authorities on this, but we all have an opinion and experience with it, I do think. But before we get any further, let me introduce our panel and our guests, and then we'll go from there. And I'll start with the old guy first, Bill. So you look older. You may not be older, but you look older.
So, thank you very much. My name is Bill Stouffer. I'm the executive director of PROA. We're the Pennsylvania Recovery Organization Alliance, statewide recovery community organization of Pennsylvania. I'm a person in long-term recovery, which means I haven't had to use a drink or a drug since I was 21 years old. And I've been involved in this work in one way or another since age 23. So this is what I've done with my life. And I've run outpatient and residential treatment facilities, got involved in the recovery side of things about 10 years ago. And so the issues that we're going to talk about here today are really important to me. So thank you for having me on your show.
Good. Johnny, what do you got?
Hi, everyone. I'm John Fab Bill Stouffer. I'm a person in long-term recovery. My pathway to recovery was through a diversion court, through publicly funded treatment. And then now I am working as a certified recovery specialist for a collegiate recovery program here in Northeast Pennsylvania called the All One Recovery Educational Institute. We're in community college. We have over 125 students in recovery in our program, which is just awesome. And I've gone on in recovery to experience a lot of things I worked as a therapist for a little while and came back to the peer world.
Well, very exciting. Now, Johnny, before we get buried in our subject matter and topic, you just started that job at that collegiate recovery program recently?
Yeah, John, I was actually brought in during the pandemic. Late February, I was down in D.C. and I was advocating for drug disposal programs. And coming back from D.C., I caught COVID. And this was early in COVID. So like I was in lockdown a long time. And the program actually, they saw a need to support students in recovery during COVID. So they actually hired me on while in lockdown. So
how many members did you have when they hired you?
I believe we were 20, 30 students at the time, and now we've grown over to 125.
That's amazing right there. That's a big shout out there, man. I just want to recognize that as awesomeness. So good work on that. I see Randy Anderson on the show. He's referred to us as gentlemen, but he said he uses that term loosely. I appreciate that, Randy. If you was on the show, loosely would definitely apply. I see Carol listening in. Good to have you, Carol. Well, I'm going to talk about treatment center just for a minute first. Now, I went to treatment myself in 1982 while I was in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps treatment program modeled after the Navy model, which is the same model First Lady Betty Ford went to. So the Minnesota model, they called it, and it was 42 days inpatient. And I'm still here clean and sober ever since that first day in rehab. So I think they call me a 3%er. And but over the years, I've come to know and recognize many wonderful treatment centers. And definitely some are better than others. They're not all the same. Some seem to do better work, have better staff, get better outcomes. We'll get into the ones that do it for the money or the venture capitalists as a result of ACA or whatever. But Bill, what was your treatment experience?
Well, I actually didn't even know about treatment. I learned I had a problem. I couldn't avoid seeing that I had a problem. It's probably more accurate. I ended up getting arrested at the end of some serious loss of control. And I actually went to a 12-step meeting. And the people there said, and I was probably the youngest person around. I was 21 years old, and it was 86. So there weren't a lot of young people around. They said, you should go to treatment. And I'm like, I knew about Betty Ford. I thought that was for wealthy people. And so the people in the local recovery community told me about an outpatient. And I actually went to outpatient. Now later on, I ended up running a residential facility, and recognizing that how I got into recovery wasn't going to work for everybody. And so, that's how I got into recovery. But, I ran a longer term residential program to help people, all publicly funded. These are publicly funded programs, basically bring people in off the street, help them get into recovery, connect to support, employment, save money, and then go out and take care of themselves. And that model, I've seen it work. I've seen a lot of that stuff work for a whole lot of people. And there are problems, but people can and do get into recovery through treatment, which is also best used with recovery support services, as far as I can tell. So.
Right, Johnny, you went to rehab, right?
Absolutely. My pathway was first through incarceration. I spent 5 months behind bars before I was accepted into a diversion program, and then went into treatment. And I can tell you my experience with treatment in my area was one that the treatment center itself was bought in locally. What I mean by that is that the the treatment court program that I went through had ties with the treatment program. And they wanted to send their participants to this program specifically to there because it had supported the different pathways of recovery. It had embraced different ways to do things. And I think that it was exceptionally well for me. I really bought into it when it seemed to have that local aspect, if you know what I mean. Like the people that worked there lived in the community, the people that worked there cared about the members of the community. It really was an experience that really helped to embed deeply into me, my recovery. I really can't say enough about it. There's so much so that once I had a degree, I wanted to go back to that treatment center in my community and to work there and to be part of that. So in my experience with that personally, I can say that treatment was something that helped me to get well on my way to the path of recovery.
Well, I got some more guests tuning in. Skippy, glad to have you. Renee, love you too. I like the black hearts. You used to put red hearts up, and now it's black hearts. I wonder if there's a special meaning there. Maria, welcome. Randy, it doesn't surprise me, and it took you 10 months to complete a 60-day program. That's probably still ahead of your skill set, but good job. Yeah, all right, so we understand a little bit about treatment. Now, back in the early 80s, which is, my journey begins in 82. I personally started a sober home, recovery house, call it what you want, in 1985, I believe it was. So I've been involved with recovery homes for 35 years, one form, shape, or another. I owned a bunch at one time. I funded them through my painting company. And it was always about helping people, never about really money. I never really made money, never lost money. Bought and sold a bunch. Do you have any sober home experience? Either one of you. I'll start with you first, Bill.
So actually, in my community, the first Oxford house is outside of Washington, D.C. So I think the third or the fourth Oxford house in the country was actually in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where I was working. And so I was working with the guys who were in the first Oxford house outside of D.C. So most of the people that I've worked with over the years have been in some type of sober housing. And similar to what you said, particularly early on, the people who started the houses were people who were just trying to make sure that our community had a safe place to live and support each other. And so that it's an effective model. We need safe, supportive housing oftentimes when we get into recovery. So I'm a huge supporter of recovery housing. Now, there are problems just like other areas, but without it, most of the people I know wouldn't have made it.
Thank you, Renee, for clarifying that. The red hearts, but they're black on mine. But if you say they're red, I got you. Joanne, welcome. Glad you tuned in. So Johnny, any experience with sober homes, recovery houses?
Well, I can tell you that during the pandemic, I actually was doing some work with Bill, and a lot of individuals had been reaching out because they were very concerned about, not being able to pay the bills and not being able to. What happens when we lift this moratorium on rents and everything else? And some places, as Bill had said, some places are very structured. I know of a gentleman in Lackawanna County that actually went out and put a second mortgage on his house and done these things just to make sure that he could keep the place open, and really cares for the individuals that are there. He dedicates his life to doing that, and it all comes with these regulations of being able to make, so no matter what it is, some people are going to do the right thing and some people are going to do the wrong thing. But in my experience, I've met a lot of incredible individuals that are willing to put their own financial future at stake just to keep the place open and just to keep those individuals. We have individuals in a program in our program that are in sober living, that are going to college. That is incredible. I eventually want to build a sober living campus, but that's a dream down the road. But yeah, absolutely, that's my experience.
Yeah, Bill, I'm glad you brought up Oxford, because back in the 80s, I actually bought a couple houses and rented them to the Oxford people because they couldn't rent houses. Nobody would rent them houses. So I had a couple of the Oxford outreach workers track me down and, hey, buy some houses so we can rent from you.
Yeah.
And so that worked out fine. I mean, I thought that was a really good situation. For the record, I don't own any sober houses or recovery houses myself. McShin Foundation, we have 11 houses. We're purchasing, I think, 6 of them, but they're all in the nonprofit charity. I don't own them. I work for McShin, just for the record, too. I'm not a board member, a voting member, and I don't own McShin. I work for a charity that can fire me anytime they want. And trust me, sometimes I feel like some of the board members wants to fire me, but I usually get past any conflict I might have. But so I'm going to talk about patient broker. And I remember back in the 80s, a lot of treatment centers were popping up, and they had what we called headhunters back then, guys that were in recovery. They went to treatment. They'd start hanging around, meeting, trying to, the first one to get the body to the rehab, they make the money, So headhunting, patient brokering been around for a while. But I do recall when they HMOs came along and whacked reimbursement for treatment, one of their arguments were that there was a lot of headhunting going on. A lot of people were doing this stuff for the money. And so I know they kind of cut that out way back when. But do y'all know anything about patient brokering or headhunting in today's content? Bill, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I think a lot of our history is important. I think for people out there who are learning about the recovery movement or being involved, you got to learn the history, because it tends to repeat itself. And like you were saying with HMOs, about 50% of the treatment programs in the nation got shut down during the early 1990s. But yeah, patient brokering has been around for a long time. It seems to have picked up some in the last few years, where they'll hire so less reputable programs will hire people to go out and market for them, or to recommend to get people to their houses, and they'll pay them a couple $1,000s per head to get them there. Now this is illegal. There's a federal law against it on the books currently. And they're hired, but oftentimes they don't know what they're doing is illegal. They're hired often as independent contractors, and they're thinking they're helping, saying, you make some money and help get people to rehabs, and they're out there, looking for people to connect to a rehab. And that's not a great way to find services at all, because you're going to get you get bought. You don't go to a high quality place. And you don't know that the person just telling you, yeah, go to this rehab, it's a good one. You don't know that they're being compensated to send you there.
Johnny, any experience with patient broker and headhunters?
Well, I'll just say this. I'll say, I tuned in last week and had some comments about knowing an individual that had been through multiple treatment episodes that was, cash app money just to get into the place. And of course, we'll see this, and we're going to see it. Do I think is as widespread as most would think? I don't know. But I can tell you that when we look locally, and we treat locally, as I mentioned in treatment, and we have those sort of local, listen, if you have a rehab in Kansas, people want to go there because they don't want people in their community to know that they are suffering with a substance use disorder. But you may find out that the treatment there might be something like that. It might be a great treatment center. But I'm just saying that I've seen it. I've seen it done. I've seen individuals suffer. What I mean by that is that it steps down, is that the person will get caught, and then it goes up the food chain. And then you're seeing slap on the wrist and fines. And then you're seeing a person that actually got the money sitting in jail. Of course, there's some issues there. But if you're dealing with a reputable treatment center, and I know, how do you put that word reputable? It's by experience. It's talking to the people that are there. Most treatment centers, and I'm sure McShin might have something that says, how was your experience here? And you're looking at ratings, reviews, things like that. I know it's difficult, but understanding what that treatment center is like and what they care for, it can keep you from falling into that pit, is what I'm trying to say. Marketers are going to be there. We're going to see brokering. We're going to see it. But I don't think that it's as widespread as most believe.
I'm that guy, and I expect Bill as well. We've been around for decades. We've been around this industry for decades. Every single day for 38 plus years, I've engaged with new people in recovery, old timers in recovery, and any of the businesses involved with recovery. So I've seen a lot of treatment centers, a lot come and go, a lot of sober homes come and go. And, the old school treatment, they're by and large pretty good. I guess their quality goes up and down a little bit. The thing of sober homes for a minute, like here in the Richmond metropolitan area, we have 1,000 sober beds. And a lot of these sober homes where people came through McShin and they said, oh, I want to do this for a living. I like being a Hope deal. It feels good to me. I'd like to be able to do this full time and earn enough money to pay my bills. And sober homes seem to be the easiest way to get there. And the next thing you know, you have competition. Now we got, over 100 recovery houses in the Richmond area. And people realize, holy shit, man, don't everybody pay their bed fee, you know what I mean? And next thing you know, I got all these bills and I got to keep these things full with people that can pay me, and I got to have an edge over my competition. And now I think competition's good, but I remember back in the 80s, all these treatment centers, they used to always say, get help first. It doesn't really matter where you go as long as you get help. And they were like all quality organizations. And the new companies that would start, how's a new company to have a reputation, good or bad, when they're new? And I can see where 2010, when the Affordable Care Act blew up and these investment bankers and hedge fund operators, they pumped billions into the treatment center industry. Like overnight, our treatment capacity doubled. And then it become a problem of competition. These guys got to keep these treatment centers full. They got debt, they got bills, people want to make money. That flushes out the headhunters, the marketers, and people are smart. They very ingenious on coming up with marketing schemes. Who can monopolize the internet for the marketers? And the next thing you know, we got this great big mess. But it isn't as widespread in America. There's certain states where it seems to blow up in for certain reasons. And it does seem to me that Congress stepped in. They created some new language around sober living, around marketing, around treatment, around kickbacks, or whatever you want to call it. The states are shaping it up a little bit. And I think most of the folks are screwed up at getting out. there might be a handful of diehard, cronies running around. I expect they'll be flushed out sooner or later. Any thoughts on this? Bill, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, and I agree with you that timeline that happened. When the investment bankers showed up, and I'm shocked. I've been doing this my whole life, and this is, this is what I say. There's a lot of ways to get wealthy doing this work. I'm not doing any of those, because generally speaking, that's not really what the work is about. So the investment bankers showed up, and they saw money in the industry, right? And for people out there watching this, if you want to do this work right, this is low margin work. This is not a place you're going to get wealthy if you're doing it right. So really flashy programs and all that kind of stuff is probably a clue that there's something going on. It has been a problem, and I think it will. I think it will weed out. I think there are things that could be done for truth in advertising, and doing some other things to make sure that good information is getting out about who's doing good work. And frankly, I think the recovery community getting more involved in this as well, because oftentimes it's these outside groups, investment bankers, and other organizations kind of coming in and seeing this as a way to cash out. So I think we need to kind of police our own, and make sure that vulnerable people don't get taken advantage. There's patient brokering. There's patient aggregator sites. Like if you go on and Google, getting into treatment, that's probably the worst way to get a treatment organization, because they actually hijack some of those sites, or some of the places that you go that look like they're going to help you find treatment are basically trying to find out your insurance and selling you, And so we do need some regulation about that stuff, but that's not the majority of the organizations that are out there helping people. I do think it's going to shake out over time. We've been here before.
Yeah, it's funny because people would Google McShin, and then for some reason they Google McShin, but it would go to some brokerage site that we get our shit hijacked all the time.
Yeah.
I see Andrew Kessler joined us. Andrew, I've cleaned up my potty mouth, man. You ain't heard me cuss yet, to be honest with you. And besides, a good liberal would understand that the Supreme Court ruled that there really ain't no such thing as cussing anymore. So that one up, never mind. Stephen, welcome. I like what you said. Do it for the outcome, not the income. Johnny, what are your thoughts, buddy?
Well, although I cannot speak to the 80s, as I'm not. Well, yeah, okay. I lived in the 80s, but I wasn't paying attention to the treatment world back then. But I do know the history, because I have a very good teacher that says that history is something that should be important moving forward. And understanding that, if nothing about us without us is to have any meaning, that statements like Stephen's is so much, it's about the outcome, not the income. I didn't get into this line of work to be rich. I don't think I will ever be, but I am the richest person in the world because I have everything that is important to me. My family, my wife, a position that I can help people, why I got into this. And I think when we look at that, there's a solution. And why I mean that is why are people getting into this business? Why are they getting into the line of work? And we can sort of, as the recovery community, understand what someone's purpose is. If we look at an organization or a person, let's take what you both all do. I believe in both of you all because you stand in what you believe and you're very firm in it, and you do it with compassion and empathy, and you're really good at it. We can sniff those things out that aren't sort of there. Like, listen, I don't need a pool, a jacuzzi, a horse trail, and all these other things to recover and $75,000 a day. But if you can afford that, hey, go for it. But I'm just saying that maybe in the late 80s or mid 80s that we saw that transition of individuals getting into this line of work that were just getting degrees and didn't have recovery experience. And I'm going on a limb here to say that maybe it became more about the income than the outcome. And the programs that I like to associate with or to maybe talk about are the ones that focus on the outcome rather than the income. And we can pick those out pretty easily.
Yeah, one thing that I'm just a little worried is that the stigma is already terrible with addiction. Okay, remember the phase when all these communities were they created the gotcha magazines, where everybody got arrested. They put your picture in a magazine, they sell it at the 7-Eleven stores. Yeah, I think some states are banning them or some publishers quit doing it. But the stigma is a big problem for addiction, and it keeps a lot of people from getting help. And the problem with patient brokering and shady sober home operators and bad treatment centers, it's so small compared to all the good stuff, but yet that the stigma damage is going to be much greater, I think, than the impact some of these people have. And it's my hope and wish that we can sort of get things in perspective and keep them in perspective. And like you said, Johnny, I know in Virginia, I know who the good ones are, the bad ones are. I mean, I know who needs to be regulated more than others, and I wish there was a way to call them out quicker and easier too, to be honest with you, because I do see what they call the Florida Shuffle. I do see where that's gotten fine-tuned a little bit, and it's starting to expand nationwide. And I think it's important that we remember what happened down in Florida, because we don't want that happening elsewhere in the country. Bill, you kind of alluded to that a little while ago. Don't forget where we come from. Mm-hmm. And Johnny, that's good that we remember the '80s. You know what I mean? And it's not so good when you get up in the morning, but it's really good when it comes to these topics and whatnot. Right. But moving forward, I would like to flush out, somehow figure it out. How do we call out the bad ones? What is really a patient broker? Who was really breaking the law? Who was really ruining our industry? Because a lot of good people are getting hurt right now. I see that happening. People, girlfriends, boyfriends, mommies, daddies, neighbors. A lot of guys get drawn into a battle here that don't need to be, and people are getting hurt. And I'd like to see battle lines being drawn, categorized, wrongdoers from people who don't really know no better. Somehow we got to, and we're the recovering people, Bill and Johnny, nothing about us without us. We ain't talking about this because this affects us in our industry and what we do, our recovery space, so we got to weigh in on this. Bill, thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right. And as you were talking about, what happens with stigma is that we all get painted. This is what happens time and time again. We have bad apples who do things that they shouldn't. And then the larger society looks at us and says, well, there's some people in that industry that did bad things, and they associate it with the rest of us. And then we get all kinds of a burdensome regulation and actually things that make it harder for us to do the work. That's my perception. That's what I've seen over my time. So the way to go about that is we need to start looking at what's going on in our environment and stopping it. Like buying somebody a plane ticket to go to a rehab is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. When there are patient aggregation sites, we take them to our state attorney general. If people are hijacking sites or misrepresenting, we take them to our attorney general's office. And let people know, beware of those sites. You look for programs, talk to their alumni. Look for programs that have good, stable staff, and they know what they're doing, and they don't have a lot of flashy stuff. There's some really good treatment out there that doesn't have polo or swimming pools or all the rest of that stuff. What they're doing is giving you hope, purpose, and connection. They're connecting you to the kind of things that you need to get better. That's where they're spending their resources. So, all that flashy stuff, it's kind of like when I go for a contractor, if I need work done on my house, I'm not going to the place that's marketing me the most, because odds are the only way they're getting work is by doing a lot of marketing. I'm going to somebody who word of mouth, they worked on your kitchen. Well, I'll have them to check out mine, or, that kind of stuff. So we need to police our own, and be aware when this stuff's going on in our own communities, or it's going to harm us all.
Johnny, thoughts?
Well, I definitely support everything that Bill says. To echo that in some way, one of the things that I have found that has helped me to successfully navigate individuals to treatment, having now been working as a CRS or a counselor over the last 6 years or so. It has been looking at family programs. It's something that, most don't look at. If you're looking at going to a treatment center, do they have a family education day? Do they have a family outreach program? You talked about this before about interventionists. An interventionist probably most undersought thing is they're not only focused on helping the person to get to treatment, but helping the family to heal. When we look at an interventionist, we look at maybe they might not have the best success in getting someone to treatment, but it's not about that. It's not totally about that. It's about helping the family to heal, helping them get the direction they need to get help them with the individual in some way. But I'll also say that with the stigma, I've experienced it myself. And what I mean by that is that individuals not understanding, hey, the treatment world's all crooked. Yeah, everyone's crooked. Here, I worked my ass off, and I finally get to walk into a car dealership and sign a paper to buy my first ever new car in my life. First ever new car in my life. I walked in there like, pick one. Before it would be just like, get out of here. We can't tell you no fast enough. I get a new car, and then I have to get a call from a county commissioner telling me that, hey, I stood up for you today because someone was saying that you took all that money that you got for that grant and bought yourself a new car. That's what that does. That stigma does, of that understanding that the treatment world and everything else is poison. I sat in that shit for a little while. Like, really? Are you kidding me? You're absolutely right. The stigma about it is that we're all crooked. And then we perpetuate that by having conversations that it's all crooked. It's not all crooked. There are people that care.
Let me ask y'all a question. I remember prior to starting McShin in 2004, I would say 10 years prior to that, I had a local reputation for if somebody needed help, call me. I would go do it. We called a 12-step call back in the day. And I would even drive people 5, 6, 7 hours away, just take them to treatment. I did it as part of my 12-step, what do you call it, mission or whatever. And I can remember being in these really expensive treatment centers, dropping people off. And there would be interventionists there dropping people off. And they'd be getting a travel voucher. They go to the window and they would write them a check for whatever time or gas. You could get $200, $300, $400 back then just to drive somebody to the rehab. And I was thinking, I don't know if that's legal or not, or they still do that or not. I mean, like how do you get somebody to treatment? Is it always up to the individual to get themselves in the door? Because think about it. It's an illness. It's a fatal, incurable physical illness. It's like an ambulance will take you to the hospital. They'll pick you up in the community, take you to the hospital. Nobody complains about that. And if you got to go to a special hospital somewhere, nobody complains about that. A lot of people go down to Texas, MD Anderson in Houston for cancer specialty treatments all over the country. They go to these different hospitals. Nobody complains about that. But yet when it comes to treatment and addiction, all of a sudden there's a great big black and white gray area, outlaw area on getting patients to the level of care that they need wherever it would be at. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, for one thing, if somebody's going to Texas for cancer care, as far as I know, they're not building the cost of an airline ticket into the insurance costs for the services that you're actually going to get on site. So that's part of the problem there. I haven't actually heard any problems with local transport. That has not come up as a concern. Maybe it is somewhere. I just haven't heard it. As far as interventionists, it's just like marketers. There are really good, reputable marketers out there who are honestly marketing their programs. Many of them tell me they want to have ethical codes around. They think I've heard some say they want some sort of a certificate or a license to weed out some of the bad ones. Interventionists, the ones that I've seen that are doing a good job, all of their costs are up front. Like the people know what they're charging and what they're getting for it. They're not doing it on the side where the family doesn't know that they're getting compensated for sending someone to a particular rehab. Because what's happening there is that the influence of where the individual is going. Now, this is just my opinion, but what happens is there's an influence there, you know. So if that program is going to give them a voucher, odds are that the individual is going to go to the program that gives them the biggest voucher, not the program that's going to provide them the best care. And that's the kind of stuff where I think is seriously problematic.
Johnny, what are your thoughts?
Well, I can just throw in my personal experience in this is that working as a certified recovery specialist in the state of Pennsylvania, my organizations, no matter what organization I worked for, doing it, supported me in the warm handoff program or others to be with someone before, during, and after treatment. And I can tell you that I have personally transported individuals to treatment. I've not only transported them to their treatment, I've picked them from the hospital to treatment. Then after the day they get out, I'm the face that they get in the vehicle with to take them back to the community, to show them where the things are. So in essence, you know, I think that that's sort of how we've gone. You know, you said there used to be interventionists with vouchers. Maybe that was back in the black and white TV days. I don't know. We have color TV today. Today we have CRSs, and that's what peer support is. If someone is struggling, you know, we get them county funding. There isn't a pick of choice of a rehab here. You know, we're getting the first open bed, and we're looking at facilities. And sometimes we have to pick a facility that we might not be 100% like, oh, well, this is so good, I got them there. But we have to get someone in there. We've got to that place. We're at that place in this country right now where beds are at a minimum. So no matter the program, sometimes we have to get the person there and support them through that process.
Let me ask, I wrote down two questions there. Let's talk about transport for a minute. Let's say you have a treatment center, and like I know a kid now, every time he tells a story, he's only been clean under 2 years. He went to a very reputable, well-known national treatment center. It was 150 miles away, and the treatment center sent a limo driver down to pick him up and take them back. So it was a transport. I guess the treatment center hired a driver or a limousine service to go get them 150 miles away, pick them up, take them back. I mean, would that be a gray area or a no-no or I don't know. I know you're not legal experts on the law, but to me that seems okay if they're going to drive and to pick somebody up and bring them back. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Bill?
I'm not an expert on this area, but I would be a little careful about that kind of stuff. You know, because it could be seen as compensated. Like, where is the money coming from for that? Is it built into costs, and those costs are expressed to the funder? Like, does the funder know that they're hiring a limo to pick the person up? You know, those are kind of things I would wonder about. I would be careful with that kind of stuff. You know. Like, I'll go back to John's.
I know in this case the people had great insurance.
Yeah.
Government insurance. They work for the government. And but I have no idea if the funder knows that the treatment center is sending a transporter or not. But I mean, Bill, you kind of answered the question. You thought it's a tricky area. You know, and it might be black and white in the law. I don't know. I really don't know what the exact law says. Transporting, though, Johnny, you touched on PRS is transporting people. I'm assuming you're talking locally, but your thoughts on a scenario like what I just mentioned?
Well, I know of treatment centers that pick individuals up and take them back. That is not billed to their insurance. It's just something that they do. But you know, no one ever offered me to pick me up in a limo or go to treatment. You know, I went in the county jail van to treatment and then was unshackled. But
let me switch gears. Let's say some of these good treatment centers that we all know, they have marketers that we all know, and they're good marketers. They're wonderful people. And they only work for, let's say you're a marketer that only works for one treatment center. You're not marketing for multiple treatment centers. But that marketer, you know, they travel around a multi-state area in a lot of cases, and they'll say, look, if you need to go, call me. I guess once they get the money done or the insurance done, they say, I'll pick you up and take you. You know, it might be a state away or 2 states away or 3 states away. It could be a 300-400 mile drive. Is that acceptable, do you think, or do you know any laws around that? I mean, I don't know. Bill, you seem to have.
Yeah, I think that's probably a point for them to take a look at carefully to make sure that it is legal. I mean, I definitely see why you're saying that and the value that that kind of service has, but you know, the intricacies of it are something I
think about it, Bill. A kid calls up Sunday afternoon, 5 o'clock. Yeah. They're 150 miles away, so I'm ready to go. And the market director for the treatment says, all right, wait right there. I'll be there in 3 hours. You know, your window of opportunity to get somebody in rehab. And,
yeah.
You know,
well, if I was running that facility, I just would want to make sure what the law says, and I would want to do whatever I could to make sure that whatever I was doing was above board. And I'm guessing there are probably ways to do that. But I would just, I don't know, you know, what I call HR 6, it passed a few years ago as part of the Substance Use Disorder Prevention that promotes opioid research and treatment for patients and communities act. Boy, we really, the Support Act, you know, has some language in it about kickbacks and things like that. So that's one place to look. State Attorney General's offices. I would just want to make sure that whatever I was doing was as safe and legal as possible.
You know, I know people down in Florida that check with their lawyers, they check with their local district attorneys, and they even contacted the state attorney, and they even got letters saying this seems appropriate. Only later they come back and arrest their ass and convict them for breaking the law. So when you check with people, I don't think there is a place to go check and get definite yes and no for some of these things. Some of them, you can clearly get definite answers, but some of them, people ain't got a clue, you know? So, and that invites wrongdoing.
It could vary from state to state as well, right? It could be that you're in Virginia and you're driving to Pennsylvania to bring somebody up, and you're crossing 2 states where you just might have interceded with one local law. So you're right. Exactly, finding the exact law or place to go seems a little difficult.
You know, people, they're worried. They're always worried about exploiting, you know, the newcomer or stuff like that. But what does the criminal justice system do to all these addicts and alcoholics and mentally ill people? They are the number one exploiters of our illness of all time, and they trump patient broker and they trump bad treatment centers. To me, they trump all that, you know. So I think there might be some. I'm a conspiracy guy, by the way. You know, when I see a lot of pushback on some areas, it makes me wonder who's going to benefit from this. So if we get everybody scared to try to help people and get them to rehab, the people who are going to benefit are the organ donors, agencies, the criminal justice system, the industrial prison complex, the Suboxone distributors, you know. So I just think, man, I think there's a lot of crap going on here. My radar is going off.
I definitely want to make sure that people get into care. I mean, I just somewhere in there, there has to be right ways to do things, and I don't know all the intricacies of the law. You know, I definitely. You know, I've helped get people to treatment myself. So, you know, this is something we need to do. That, you know, this may be different than buying a plane ticket and then billing it to their, like hiding the cost in their other services and billing them. You know, that from what I've heard is pretty clear as insurance fraud. You know, so we just have to be careful.
And then how about America's built on entrepreneurship. You know. I mean, we're some thinking people in America, you know, we want to make some money, do the right thing, help people, and then you get government overreach and stepping over their bounds. I mean, the government's full of crap for the most part on a lot of this stuff. So it's almost like, you know, how many times do you read a paper where you read a case almost every day? Some dentist, some pediatrician, some company got Medicaid fraud, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's in every facet of the healthcare industry. There's going to be fraud. There's going to be crackdown. But when I hear of a dentist doing Medicaid fraud or a dialysis companies doing Medicaid fraud or oxygen companies, you know, I don't think destroy the whole industry. You know what I mean? Just lock them all up. But yet for addiction and alcoholism, it seems to be that potential for that mindset, you know, just screw them, lock them all up. And it's back to criminal justice being the beneficiary of locking them all up, not the communities. You know, Kelly asked a question or to make a statement. I would think as long as they are offering that service to all clients across the board, it should be fine. The questionable issue would be if that was only offered to certain clients. I think she was probably talking about transporting or something, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Like, you know, I kind of like, if you have good insurance, we'll transport you. Like that seems like a problem.
Entrepreneur, you know. Well, you know what? Now there you go. I think that like most insurance companies only pay X amount of money for X amount of services anyways.
Right.
A lot of these guys and girls, they ain't getting the money people think they get. You know what I mean? You know, how many times do you hear of a treatment center went out of business because the insurance company didn't reimburse them like they were supposed to, and they didn't have the money to fight them. So, I mean, the whole thing is a mess. But a golden question, how do you know a good treatment center from a bad one, and should we be referring people to treatment?
Well, we definitely have to. I mean, treatment exists for a reason. You know, I've watched a lot of people I love that have lost their lives to addiction, and you know, this is a serious condition. It kills people. Treatment is part of the solution for a lot of people. So we definitely need to send people to treatment when they need it. You know, things to look for is how the facility presents itself. Like if you get on the phone and it seems like all their questions are related to money, that's probably not the place to go. Do they have stable staff? Are the staff staying there a long time? Do they have a history? Do they have alumni groups that are active? You know, can you talk to some people who have been through it? You know, these are the kind of things. Unfortunately, it also makes it difficult for somebody who doesn't know anything at all about treatment, because they're not in the rooms and they can't hear about the alumni and all those kinds of things. So it can be hard, you know. And there is some work to try to rate treatment centers. I'm not sure how that's going to all pan out. I haven't looked at it enough, but you know, we definitely need to send people to treatment, and I think part of it is trusting your instincts. If it seems like you're being sold something, you know, you probably are. I think we started out this show, we're saying that the first thing that we used to ask is, you know, any treatment, you know, get some kind of treatment. Even if you don't come here, please go somewhere. Like that's the kind of mentality, that service mentality that I think is a good sign of a good program.
Johnny, thoughts?
Well, again, just going off of what Bill said, of course, supporting all those things is, again, I look for family programs. I look for alumni groups. I look for community connection. But I can tell you that in my experience, that picking treatment is not an option that a lot of individuals I work with have. It is the first available bed that's open at a facility. You know, that golden hour, we'll call it, just a phrase from the Vietnam War, where it's like, I'm ready to go. In that moment, there isn't a lot of time to be deciphering between program to program. So again, trusting your instincts, supporting that person. As the recovery specialist, I can check in on individuals that go into treatment to see how their progress is going, meet with their counselors, see what issues are being raised, and having them speak up if there's an issue with the treatment center. I know they won't know that wholeheartedly, but the quality of care will definitely be something that is transparent. You know, we can talk about and engage with, just in my experience. But I mean, John, it is hard. It's hard to exactly know which program is doing the right thing, the wrong thing. But I like that thing that Bill included was your gut instinct. Something seems like you're being sold something that's not true. We can usually pick that out, but a lot of people aren't. And it's using your resources. It's reaching out to alumni, reaching out to people in the community. Who's got that community buy-in? If it's a local treatment center, the stigma, we press stigma by saying, hey, I'm going to go to Florida to get treatment when I live in Pennsylvania. So I don't want anybody to know. There's the problem. You got to be connected. You have to be connected. Hiding in that in isolation, not letting anyone know is where it's going to grow. So using a treatment center that's in your community, has community buy-in, community participants, you're going to have that backing of your recovery. There's no need for us to hide our heads in shame and drive across the country to go to treatment anymore. We have 24 million Americans that are struggling out there. You're not alone, and I don't see a need to take off across the world to go get treatment. There's good treatment programs right in your backyard.
I know people go to Switzerland to get their watch repaired, so a lot of folks, I do believe, okay, you got high-end rehab, it costs money, insurance is not going to be an issue, money's not going to be an issue, go wherever you want to go, whatever you like to spend. That's always going to be around. That upper crust will always want the upper crust filet mignon, you might want to call it. There's always going to be people who need to get out of state and go somewhere. I'm down with that. You might have some facilities or a model located in Florida or Texas or California. I know Pennsylvania got one of the best rehabs in the world right up near you guys. So I imagine people go from all over America to go to Pennsylvania. They go from all over America to go to Minnesota and Haverty Grace, and there's some great places out there where people will go to on reputation. But there again, if they can afford it, money's not an issue. So I guess so be it. Right. So I just know the treatment overall is really good. It needs to be abundant and available. Let's get as many people there as possible. I know intervention is really important. I know sober living is important. I know marketing is important. I know transportation is important. I know the golden hour is important, and if the government's going to create policies, and we all need to play by the same policies, I know that too. But in the meantime, I think Americans should be Americans and use their instinct to make it a better country than a worse country. So we got to have common sense in the mix here too. And I know competition. You got to have legitimate competition. You don't want to look for edges in competition, political edges or law edges, just for the sake of creating them to make your place look more applicable or whatnot. And I know some of those they had congressional hearings, I do know, that were brought by a jealous and resentful treatment center industry against new players that sort of cracked the code on marketing and monopolizing and creating your basic meat and potato 28-day program at a cheap price. That really irritated a lot of people. So, that really wasn't for the good of the addict either, some of those congressional plays that took place over the last couple of years. What are we missing here, though? Are we missing anything, Bill?
I'm thinking, I agree with you, and I think the longer I'm doing this work, the government stepping in with solutions actually ends up generally overburdening us. So, we have to be involved in the solutions.
Hey, like Ronald Reagan said, I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Yeah. I think the idea of having a better product, that's actually where we should focus on. Who's doing a good job and who sticks with people when they don't do well, so that we can connect them into services. Those kind of things are the things that we should be looking at. We need treatment. We're in this recovery movement. We got to understand that the initial recovery movement in the early 70s was actually people who started treatment. I would be dead without them. In the 60s, they did lobotomies and electroshock. That's what people in the late 60s got. So, the people who put together treatment were our forerunners and the people who were innovating and developing things that we need. And we definitely need to keep it.
I got a true story. One of my home group members in my home group, he's pretty problematic bipolar guy. But the last time he got arrested, he got tasered 2-3 times, right? He said, "Man, that doesn't fix me, man." So I'm thinking electroshock still works for some people out there, man.
It actually does. They actually use it for depression.
But
than it was.
Yeah, but I say this shit all the time to these policymakers and these bureaucrats. I say, you don't get it, man. The treatment center world as we know it was basically invented in the last 30, 40 years. They didn't have this as we know it today 50, 60 years ago. So some of your inventions today, they're broken. You got some broken inventions. So we do need to overhaul some of these systems of care, they're antiquated, and especially the tax funded government area of treatment completely, I think, could be revamped. I think they're in a rabbit hole and they can't get out. They got these bureaucracies that they have to fund, but they're no longer needed. They're not in use. I mean, we got agencies that still believe in the mail when it's just as easier, it's quicker and cheaper to send an email, but they still want to mail stuff. I don't get the thinking, We got a few minutes left. Johnny, any TikTok ideas or anything?
Well, just like you said, antiquated systems, things that are going on. It's a lot of treatment centers are unaccepting of MAR. It's only a detox only thing for a few days, and some of these individuals are thrust into an open bed and they're wanting to stay on medically assisted recovery. It's been their pathway. I've personally seen individuals leave treatment because they were promised one thing. Oh yeah, we have medically assisted recovery. Oh, it's only detox. You're right. There are some antiquated things, but if we're going to be accepting of everyone, accepting of multiple pathways, no matter what it is, we can't just do that 1980s, 1970 model where it's step 1, 2, 3, and you're out in 14 days or 28 days. I'm not saying that doesn't work. If it does, it does. I'm just saying that a lot of programs are still following just that model, and if it's like you just said, it's like sending mail instead of sending an email. Not saying it didn't work. I'm just saying that we're accepting multiple pathways, but yet we're telling someone when they commit to treatment that they need to do step 1, 2, 3. So I do believe that, summing up, that there are a lot of great treatment centers, a lot of great interventionists, a lot of great sober homes out there. I'm speaking from personal experience. I don't know what's going on in Virginia. I don't know what's happening in California. I just think that if we as individuals in the recovery community can help more responsible to putting those things out there and looking in our own communities and calling out those individuals that are doing this, we need like a national reporting agency or something, or an 800 hotline or an email that we can say, hey, this is going on here, that's going on there, and a committee that's actually going to go out and check these things out.
How do you verify that? How do you know it's not some jealous ex-girlfriend, boyfriend putting that shit on there, So
that's the problem with the person that answers the phone. I'm just saying that it's like the Wild West. Right. Nobody's policing. So when you're not policing, the outlaws are going to run the coop, or I guess however you want to put it. You probably have a better euphemism for that than I just had. But if no one's watching what you're doing, there are people will do evil things.
We got people watching. You can bank on that.
Right.
Bill, we miss anything?
I think it comes down to it comes down to us. If we see things going on around us that shouldn't, we kind of need to do something about it. And that's the way I look at my local recovery community. And if I see people who are doing unethical things, I do something about it. It starts there with each of us.
Well, I'll tell you what, you guys, I really appreciate you coming on today. We've been on here about an hour. During this COVID period, you've seen a lot of social media content pop up, a lot of podcasts, live streams, and, McShin, we've done a really good job. We do a lot of this stuff. And one good thing is we give all this content at no charge we give it to the criminal justice system. So these guys that are in prisons and jails all across America that have tablets, they have access to this content to keep them in touch with good quality conversations from good quality people in recovery. So appreciate you guys coming on today. Maybe we'll do another show on this, maybe not, but I know we're going to meet up again. And Johnny, I'm going to see you on the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd.
Saturday, October 3rd.
Hey, I knew it was one of them days. And what are we doing that day? It's a rap thing?
Yeah. Boat recovery. Yes, we are.
Boat recovery. There you go. Is Bill going to tune in? You going to watch that day, Bill?
I'm doing a training out in Western PA that day. So I would if I hadn't. But.
So you wore the T-shirt today for the rap on that.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm going to put a collared shirt on, man. Just, how'd that happen,
Hey, John. just 1 second in closing, I just wanted to say something is that, you know, Bill can probably back me up on this as well, and John, you've probably experienced this, is that during COVID, we've seen individuals that have been part of the recovery community that are long, stable recovery. We've seen a lot, we've lost a lot, and we've seen a lot go back out. And for me, it's just been about every day where it's like Groundhog Day, where I'm getting the bad news again and again and again. So I just wanted to leave by saying, reach out to each other, be supportive during this time. We're not indestructible. None of us are. Reach out to Bill, reach out to John, reach out to your circle. And if you would, everyone in this room, reach out to those people you know and just say, hey, how are you doing? You know, we're not indestructible. We're all going through a tough time, and it's okay to be not okay. I'm tired of burying people. So please.
Yeah, I posted on my Facebook page, I think today, there's an article in the Richmond Times-Dispatch that the non-fatal overdose are up 126% right now in the Richmond metropolitan area. And I think the death rate's going to be up on average probably 25% nationwide. And I'll tell you what, I directly correlate that to lack of common sense policies from our lawmakers and our funders. Because I know damn good and well the solution to a lot of these problems is going to come from the recovery community, but we have to be valued and we have to be compensated. You know, we got to get fair and equitable access to these tax dollars. So what we can do it best. And we'll have a real drawback and drawdown on the impact addiction's having in our communities. And I know I'm singing to the choir when I say that, but like that rap event we're doing and the stuff we're doing, it's really important. It matters and it counts. So we do got to get involved a lot more than we're doing. But I'm with the Warriors, man. This is like Warriors Day here. So I appreciate it. Look, you guys, I love you, man. Be more.
Love you guys too.
Thanks for tuning in, and more be revealed, man. Have a great day.
Take care.
All right. One thing we do here, we always educate our participants. I want you to leave here after your 30, 60, 90 days or however long you stay and leave. I want you to be educated about the disease of addiction, about substance use disorders, what you need to do to personally recover. But I want you to know why we don't have the support we should have. I want you to know where all the funding goes, what the thinking is of our culture, why we're the way we are. And just for the record, everybody put their right hand up. I hereby deputize each and every one of you as an ambassador to be a face and voice of recovery from here on out. You've just been deputized. You just became ambassadors of a recovery movement, an authentic recovery movement. What authentic means is about people in recovery themselves. This is our call to action.